Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on sharing some of our experiences with our partners with regards to achieving operational efficiency, operational excellence, and efficiency with Genesys Cloud CX. Just a quick introduction into who Servion is for those of you who are not familiar. Yeah, so for those of you who are not familiar with Servion, we have, our sole purpose in life for the last 26 years or so have been helping our customers to select, implement, and leverage technologies across the contact center and CX environment. This is the sole and only purpose that we have in life at Servion. We don't do anything else, so we're 100% focused on contact centers and the CX industry. So very quickly, my name is Joseph Lim, and I lead the sales operations for Servion Global Solutions here in the Asia Pacific region. And together today, we're going to take you through a few areas where how we see or how some of our industry partners and customers see what the contact center challenges are. Look at some of the trends that's happening, especially post-pandemic, and then hopefully give you some tips on how you would select the right contact center platform to meet your requirements. We will also take you through why customer journey orchestration is important to you and how that impacts your bottom line. So we will have speakers from Genesys to talk a little bit about that. And as a demonstration of how these can be achieved, we will have a quick demo of how Genesys Cloud CX platform helps our customers in orchestrating this journey and how it will help you as a contact center operator to maximize the leverage the use of the technology that you've selected. We do have a Q&A session at the end of the day. Perhaps, Sarah, can you move to the next slide? We do have a Q&A session at the end of the day, but please, post your questions, as we go along, and we can have people at the back end answering those questions if it is possible. If not, we will try to answer those questions towards the end of the session as well. The whole session will be recorded. So, for those of you who wants to share with your colleagues and friends who are not able to attend today, please feel free to do that. We'll send it to you at the end of the webinar. And for the attendees, please note that your microphone is muted. So if you do have a question at the end of the session, do unmute yourself. So let me quickly introduce the speakers for today. We have Raymond Devadas. Raymond is the founder and CEO of Day3, who is a strategic business services consulting company, specifically focusing on the field of digital transformation, which is one of the key topics that we all see around today, right? As the industry moves towards a different way of interacting with organizations. So Raymond will speak a little bit about what are the challenges and how we see the industry moving forward. We have Louis Teo, who is the head of strategic business consulting from Genesys in the Asia Pacific region. Louis comes with a lot of consulting background, including companies like Accenture. And he will also take you through how the customer journey orchestration piece of the contact center is going to be critical in providing you a platform to launch yourself into operational excellence. We have Chang-Ching An, who will show you the platform itself at the end of this session. Towards the end of this session, he will show you how Genesys in action, how the platform will be able to help you to orchestrate the customer journey. I've introduced myself, so I guess without further ado, I'm going to move over to Raymond to take over the stage. Raymond, please.
Thanks, Joseph. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. So let me try to do justice in the next 5 to 8 minutes to sort of share a little bit with you my experience as the CEO of Day3, as well as the president of the Contact Center Association of Malaysia, and also my dealings with all my industry members. To talk a little bit about the industry, the CX industry, and and especially where we are headed, given this post-pandemic area or time or endemic. And I think if we recall over the last 2 years, we spent many webinars together and over many screens, and then a lot of things that we learned, and especially also if you recall. Just the period prior to pandemic, we spoke about a VUCA world. It wasn't too long ago. We spoke about a world which would be volatile, uncertain, ambiguous in many ways. But I think nobody thought about the pandemic as a whole and how it was going to change things, and especially for us in the CX world. And I think, over the past 2.5 years, 3 years, we begin to see that a lot of things have changed in terms of how we deal with customers. And I just want to share with you a little bit of my experience, what has happened over the last 2 years, and how perhaps some of the things, some very basic things come to the forefront. Despite we take it for granted, it's there. We always thought that it's important as customer experience, but it's really accentuated during this period of this post-pandemic. And I think the point number one, if I could just borrow this line from Judith Orloff, empathy is the medicine that the world needs. I think that has become so important in the last 2 years, in a period where we were not able to meet, in a period where we were not able to feel each other's presence. The word empathy becomes so important, especially in the area of customer service. And this brings to my own personal experience. Just prior to the pandemic, I used to shop in a small little grocer, and I had moved on to a much larger grocer, simply because there were variety, there was so much more experience with people, being able to meet people and so on and so forth. And really, because it was the variety of the food that I was going to get from this bigger grocer. But came the pandemic, what happened was the larger grocer didn't want to service me. They didn't want to deliver the food to my home. And the very same grocer that I had left or sort of neglected and jumped ship reached out to me and said, hey, look, even a simple WhatsApp, hey, is there something that you need? Is there something I can help you with? And I think, that very basic human touch and necessity has become so important for us in this area of post-pandemic. And what we learn is that empathy has become so much more crucial and important in how we interact with our customers, whether it's over the phone, whether it's a voice or non-voice. How do we deliver that empathy effectively? And that empathy just cuts across not just with our customers, it's also how we deal with our people. And I manage a contact center with 2,000 people today. That becomes so crucial. That not just the empathy with the end customer, but more importantly, the empathy with your own people. These are the people who had suffered throughout the last 2 years, people who have had tremendous pressures, whether it's financially or even emotionally, and yet they had to come to work on a daily basis to face sometimes very irate customers. So how do you deliver that empathy? And I think that has changed really the way we work. And I think some of the technology that we use today to be able to deliver this empathy is something that becomes very important. Point number two that I just want to bring up is also, we can move on to the next slide, talking about the technology that we choose to use. And I borrowed this word from Steve Jobs. You've got to start with customer experience and work backwards towards the technology. In other words, CX has to be the end goal when you decide on a technology. Very often we get into webinars like this, we get into seminars, we get into conferences, and we see our competitors getting into different space, perhaps enabling a web chat, or having a lot of other automated tools or self-service tools. If we do not spend enough time in developing the process, what happens is the technology we use can be counterproductive. It can even dilute your brand value. And that's something that I've learned. Many large organizations today, when you go into their web chat forums, you get more frustrated than anything else, because for the lack of information that you get from them, the lack of FAQs built into the chat systems. So again, the point that I want to make today is that when we look at technology, when we look at solutions that we want to deploy, let's not just look at the technology itself. At the end, the end goal has to be, and the question you've got to ask yourself is that the technology you deploy, whether it is going to improve your customer experience. And that's ultimately the goal that we have to look at. So again, the third point I think I just want to make is they seem very simple and very basic. If we move on to the next slide, the technology itself, and a very simple term I like to use is be human. I think this is what the pandemic has taught us. The pandemic has taught us to be human with not just the customers that we interact with, but also with the people, our staff that we interact with. And when it comes to technology, how do we humanize technology? And what is this term, humanize technology? And for me, humanizing technology means that technology must be a joy to use. It cannot cause frustration. In many instances, as I mentioned even earlier, the chat platforms sometimes that we deploy cause more frustration than an enhanced customer experience. So how do we make this technology not just user-friendly for the people, that are using it for our staffs, but also for the customers who are interacting with these technologies. So I think this simple, 3 points that I perhaps like to share this morning about, it's been there. It's so basic. It sounds so basic, but I think this has accentuated over the last couple of years the need to have to be human, the need to have these technologies, have a sense of purpose of wanting to deliver a customer experience more than technology for the sake of technology, and ultimately how do we develop empathy. And so if we move on to the next slide, I think one of the biggest challenges that we face today is this fight that we have in our mind, that the challenge to go back to how we were. I think there's always this temptation, rather than the word challenge, I think the word is temptation, the temptation to go back to how we were pre-pandemic. And I think that is the biggest challenge that we have even today in our organizations. Do we work from home? Do we work from office? We have this challenge of wanting to work, on a hybrid model. The 2 years for me, and I think, has taught us so many things. And I think we should not let this crisis go to waste. There's so many things that we have learned. But I think as we stare in a post-pandemic era, the temptation is always to go back to how we were before the pandemic and not be able to capture some of these learnings that we've had over the last 2 years. So again, I think in this space of in this time where there's so much of confusion going on as well in terms of how do we deliver better customer experience, we need to take these learnings. These learnings for the last 2 years have become very crucial, very important. This is going to be the way forward for us, and we should not ignore that. And I just want to end this little sharing to share with all of us. The game has to change. We have to look at customer experience as a new way. We have got to look at customer experience in a different way. They may sound very rudimentary, but again, the emotional connection becomes so important. And ultimately, how do we use technology to be able to deliver this connected experience, this personalized experience? So I'll stop my sharing here, and just to give you a little bit of context of where I feel this industry is moving and where we should be focusing when it comes to deploying new technologies. Joseph, over to you.
So I believe it's my turn to speak, and thanks Raymond and thanks Joseph for teeing it up. And how very true, being human, right? Especially at a time where we're just exiting from a crisis, and especially calling for the need to be empathetic in our engagements with customers. Today, what I would like to put forth is, trying to make a case for customer journey orchestration. You see, today, most business leaders and customer engagement managers understand the need for customer experience, or CX for short. But that understanding may not always translate into practice because there are a couple of impediments in their way, right? And in this discussion, we hope to highlight and showcase some of that. Customer engagement leaders, they need to show stakeholders how CX engagement initiatives will affect business objectives such as, customer retention, improving the cost to serve, and revenue growth. And the need to improve concerted engagement across all service channels has never been greater. Next slide, please. Right. So if we take a look at some numbers, right, on the chart on the left reflects a survey that Genesys and Gartner had done and conducted. And it is very revealing because what it does show is the general mix of channels that customers get to engage with any given organization. And generally speaking, in 2017, you'll see that over 70% of engagements came in through IVRs and the voice channels. When we fast track to 2022, and you could see this incremental jump, and that leap could, I would say, be attributed to the pandemic and also the evolution of how consumers choose to engage. Now, when we take a look at it at a segment level as well as at a industry level, and we look at the chart on the right, what it does show is that propagation happens across all segments, right? It's highly predominant, however, in the Gen Zs and the millennial groups, where you would see online and mobile engagements outstripping other traditional means of contact. But that doesn't mean voice and IVRs are going to go away. It just means to organizations would be, how do they better tap into all of these channels. It's a never-ending list of channels that's been added to the mix. So how do they capitalize on that? Next slide, please. The other trend that we've seen and observed is that traditionally organizations that you wouldn't typically see competing for your business is now enroached into your space, right? So the term we like to say is, convergence. Because in the case of banking, for example, many traditional banks have found themselves in a rapid state of evolution at this point in time. And what they're evolving into is really to keep pace with the challengers and the disruptors from companies and including many non-FSI backgrounds, that's competing for their business, right? Competing for the same clientele, but with an additional edge of nimbleness and perhaps even technological edge. Next slide, please. Therefore, what we want to proposition here is that there's a certain level of business resilience that we will need to forge. And that would have to take into account both the stakeholders, that's very key in this equation, which is the customer themselves and the employees, in particular, the customer-facing representatives in your organization. The next slide. When we talk about a call for a new approach, what we're talking about is in measuring omni-channel experiences, one of the key things is to identify the drivers of poor experiences and quantifying the impact of, say, a contact center experience on business outcomes. We propose that using a journey-based measurement approach can potentially enable us to achieve our business goals and improve performance while increasing customer and employee satisfaction. Now, in the same vein, marketing counterparts have evolved greatly. They were able to execute and communicate outwards across a variety of channels in a highly orchestrated and managed way. But can we say the same when it comes to channels of engagement, right? So because today, however, contact center leaders, for example, they measure the performance of each channel independently. Traditionally, the owners of those service channels, such as voice, chat, IVR, they may work independently, right? And they leverage channel-specific systems to measure and optimize the touch points in a very siloed fashion to achieve certain metrics, yes, but while being able to hit those metrics, measuring them independently can sometimes miss the big picture of how is that affecting the overall quality of experience across those service channels. So it begs the question, is there a better way, right? Next slide, please. Customers expect efficient, empathetic experiences, and it's just kind of echoed by what Raymond has said. We found that in a study by Microsoft, over half of consumers use 3 to 5 different channels and when they are trying to seek out customer service. Now, regardless of channels, our customers become frustrated when they have to repeat their needs again. And whether they're interacting with digital or live agents, customers expect people that they're interacting with to really understand who they are and taking into account their prior experiences, actions that they may have taken, the emotions they may have felt relative to what is their current demeanor. Now, the other point is around visibility and awareness, right? To meet customers' expectations, we need visibility across those service channels. Asking customers to repeat their name, phone number, and the reason that they're calling is certainly no longer acceptable. But beyond that, we are talking about not just a conversation or a dialogue that happened with a prior agent before they get transferred. What we're talking about is what did they do and how did they interact with your brand yesterday, the week before, last month. There's a chronological sequence to that, and that has to be taken into account as well. All our customer fronting representatives will need that visibility into what the customer is trying to achieve presently and what have they experienced prior to that. Short of doing that, we risk frustrating them, and this really affects satisfaction, retention, revenue, and profits at the end of the day. Next slide, please. Let's now turn the focus a little bit about the employee part of it. Employee and customer experience, is kind of what's on the line. A survey by the International Customer Management Institute describes that agent job satisfaction, along with first contact resolution rates, drives customer satisfaction. Yes. At the same time, that same satisfaction also drives agent turnover and it drives agent absenteeism. How true that is. We see that amplified by COVID. And really the dexterity across channels when engaging with a customer is crucial. Unfortunately, Most customer fronting agents don't feel that way. They don't feel like they're equipped to handle complex customer interactions effectively nor efficiently. And when that happens, that hurts business performance in two critical ways. Firstly, customer satisfaction. Customers get frustrated, when the issues are not resolved quickly. And 90% of consumers worldwide would consider issue resolution as their most crucial concern for around customer service. Second would be employee satisfaction, because surprise, surprise, agents, who feel like they lack the information and tools to perform their job well, would be left dissatisfied. They feel overwhelmed, they get frustrated, and this is something that has a direct impact on the ability to deliver a quality customer engagement. Next slide, please. So there has to be a better way, right? In a 2020 Forbes survey, it's found that customers everywhere are demanding a more personalized and frictionless experience. Empathy, creative thinking, and new tools can help organizations address those consumer needs. And the time is now, because those technologies are available, right? If we move on to the next slide, please. Consumers use 3 to 5 different communication channels to seek service, right? So something we mentioned before. And the need to therefore evolve from a single omni-channel, from a single mode of measurement to an omni-channel one is very urgent. And that is why contact center leaders are today adopting a more journey-centric approach towards measurement. Customer journey, essentially the steps consumers would take to achieve a goal, right? Be it transferring money, moving some services over to their new address. It allows everyone from the channel managers through to the customer representatives, through to the contact center executives to understand two things. First, the goals of what the customers want to achieve when they arrive at their doorstep. Second, the paths that those individual customers took to reach or not to reach those goals. The ability to measure customer journeys, therefore, would mean changing a mindset of how we see things coming from the customer's perspective. As Raymond mentioned earlier, we shouldn't place technology and try to have the customer conform to the limitations of technology, but rather, what can we do the other way around? Right. So rather than tracking performance at individual channels, should we not measure how customers engage to achieve their specific goals, regardless of which channels they choose to engage at any one point in time? So next slide, please. Journeys. And journeys reveal what's working and what's not. So fundamentally, say when your chat abandonment rate rises, you typically would collaborate with your chat operations manager to understand and try to solve that problem. But that's a very siloed view. Just relating to a personal experience, I was at a hospital last week. I was waiting in line trying to get a number to get some blood work done. Behind me was an elderly lady, and because the line was was taking some time, she kind of opened up and she shared with me about her experience and her frustration, because the very reason why she was there in the queue is because she couldn't get an appointment arranged over the contact center, over the call center. She tried calling up, they couldn't quite understand her needs, and so she's here, and she found herself now waiting in line to get behind an automated kiosk. Now I've got my number, and she at her request, I stayed behind, and I tried to help her with her process. And it turns out that the very reason why she's not able to proceed with putting across an appointment is that the kiosk is asking her to put in a mobile number, which she doesn't have. She's not used to carrying a mobile device. So that stopped her from taking some and scheduling some important tests that she has got to get done. So what I did was I walked her across to the registrations counter, and surprise, surprise, the questions had to be repeated again. So it is very revealing what's working and what's not. Next slide, please. So when we think about this and putting it in the context of technology, what it does connect to is there are certain innovation imperatives that has to happen. There are systems of learning, systems of engagement and acting, systems of listening and understanding that goes full circle to enable three things: hyper-personalization with empathy. We talk about hyper-personalization, a buzzword in the world of marketing. We're talking about engaging in a segment of one, but how do you do that with empathy? Well, you can now. with data on hand, right? It also allows us to advance our understanding of customer experience and applying that and understanding that from a lifetime value of a customer standpoint. This allows us to deliver a more memorable experience for our customers. At the same time, it allows us to build and develop resilience as businesses as we face new economy entrants that's coming in to compete. And the battleground might really well be how well we perform in terms of engaging and interacting with our customers. Next slide, please. So we talk about achieving that. And fundamentally, there are several pieces of that puzzle. There are systems that would perform that capture, listening. There will be systems that perform that understanding and decision making, and systems that act and take action on those data-driven decisions. So the reality is the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And the more frictionless and the more seamless one organization gets to transcend across these what might be siloed systems, the more effective they will get at effecting a better customer experience. Next slide, please. Now, data is typically siloed, and Genesys and Servion is this is why we're here. We want to make this connected data accessible and usable to all the different stakeholders within this engagement ecosystem. You see, AI is on one hand, automating and expediting some of these, and oftentimes the very first step in the journey is in identification. Who is this person we're engaging? Who is this customer? Right, and the ability to provide a global identity resolution capability really empowers companies, with an AI engine, provides that identification, provides that identifier attributes that carries across the entire interaction. Right, it allows us and the companies to identify users across all our touch points and personalize that experience end to end. So making and bringing to reality the realm of hyper-personalization and ultimately achieving that segment of one. Next slide, please. At the end of the day, exceeding customer expectations and to achieve our business goals is really what we're after. And when we understand what the customers do across service channels, it then becomes easy to anticipate their needs, to serve them with empathy, and measuring those journeys rather than isolated interactions therefore becomes key to making efficient and empathetic experiences possible. Now, the second point is improving contact center measurements really starts with our customers. Those journeys can be used to enhance how we measure contact center performance to eliminate the blind spots that will plague most leaders. And journeys also reveal, what's working, what's not, and we can take the same actions, therefore, to make right and to optimize those experiences and outcomes, because really there's countless priorities competing for our attention. And finally, last but not least, our employees, because in reality, your organization will be putting out the best products in the market. And with all the investment in the technology, data, and analytics that you have invested, it does come down to the very moment that your representatives engage with a customer, right? Who may be curious about a product, or who may have a service request or have an issue on hand to resolve. And that interaction, that outcome directly determines the quality of service and the customer experience that they would associate with your brand. So at the end of the day, satisfied customers, happy employees lead to better business outcomes, right? So thank you for your time for this sharing. I'd like to hand now over to Chenan, who will walk you through some of the technology that we have.
Thank you, Luis. Let me share my screen. Let me know if you can see my slides. Well, before I begin, I just like to say, typically, when it comes to a demo session, personally, I would request for 2 hours, right? We have only 10-15 minutes left on the clock, so I'll try to be as concise as possible. If there's, as always, if there's anything that you'd like to know more, I would urge the audiences to reach out to our partner to arrange for a separate session. Now, before I really jump into my demo, let me at least give you a brief of what Genesys Cloud is, the platform that I'll be demoing today. Okay, so now for those of you who have not heard, Genesys Cloud is a CCaaS offering that we provide. When we say CCaaS, it's a solution that's only available on the cloud. We do not do any We do offer a separate on-premise solution, but Genesys Cloud in particular is only available on the cloud. It's fully managed in terms of infrastructure, and it has the ability to scale as and when needed. So for example, if you have a workforce of 300 people today, tomorrow you need, or maybe right now in the next few minutes, you need an additional 50 or 100 people to come online to take calls for a campaign, for example, you can just lock those agents on without any upfront notice needed to, to your partner or to, Genesys. Now, the second key point here that's very important as well is that Genesys Cloud is highly resilient. We are hosted on AWS itself, and we have a commitment of a SLA of 4 nines here, right? And last year itself, we achieved 99.997. Now, what that means is that in the fiscal year of 2021, in a month, we are only down for a minute. That's what 99.997 is. Just 1 minute down per month. Now, point 3 and 4, Genesys Cloud, as it is a cloud product, we are accessible anywhere. No installations are required on your tablet, desktop, or your laptop, as long as you have internet connectivity with latency based on what we need and a compatible browser, you're basically good to go. And last but not least, what differentiates us from the rest is that with Genesys Cloud, we provide patches and features on a weekly basis. And when I say that, it's not that we have patches and you have to download it and implement it on your own. All this is done by us as part of our managed services, and it's done automatically for you with basically no downtime to your business at all. Right? That's the promise of Genesys Cloud. Now, what does all these 4 points mean to you and your business? Let me summarize. So with Genesys Cloud, we basically like to address a few main points here. First of all, is the end of life, hardware, software, and operating systems. Never will you have to, in 3 or 4 years time, go into an RFP because of, your Windows servers need to be upgraded, your batch of servers needs to be replaced. All that is taken care by Genesys Cloud. And a lot of times, what I notice customers are always, not happy with is that they are always saying that, they have to reach out to their solution integrators for a periodic, updates or upgrades that they need on the system to enjoy the latest features. Well, now with weekly patching done on Genesys Cloud, that's automatically taken care for you. And as with any Genesys Cloud platform out there, security management is also done by us. So when it comes to PCI DSS compliance, SOC 2, customers are asking whether are we, for example, GDPR compliant. The system provides all that, right? Maintenance and DRS exercises are given as well. Typically, sometimes we know customers, when they own an on-premise system, these are things that they have to arrange with their IT teams. They have to do it because it's part of compliance. This is done automatically by us so that there's, again, no downtime interacted to you. And there's basically, all this kind of work is taken away from you so you can concentrate on what you do best, right? Bringing value to your business. Infra capacity and scalability, that's something that I've already mentioned. And again, I know I can't say enough, but workplace flexibility is something that is very, very important now coming out from the pandemic area. People often, during the pandemic time, people were asking us frantically, how do I enable my agents to work from home? Well, with Genesys Cloud, you can do that, right? You just need internet connectivity. And, there are many good use cases that we can share, in separate sessions with you as well. Now, I have two, 3 more slides before I actually move on to my demo. I'd like to touch upon what Luis mentioned earlier. Now, in more often than not, we don't realize it, but when a contact center solution is designed, actually it's designed based on 4 empathy pillars, right? We have listen, understand, predict, act, and learn. And when we look into more detail as to how these 4 pillars are implemented in Genesys, take, for example, the systems of listening. When a customer actually arrives in one of your channels, we want to know who this customer is. Where have they been interacting? Up all the way of, systems of actions, what's the best resource for this particular customer? Is it a bot? Is it a supervisor, for example? Is it a sales agent? Is it a normal customer service consultant? These are things that are actually programmed within the contact center solution to help you achieve these 4 different pillars of empathy, right? And then if we further drill down in and give names of technology to it, we have, reporting capabilities, you have your chatbots, you have your voice bots, right? And then, you have your feedback survey system and your, historical reporting. All this is to provide an end-to-end loop so that you get a good view and you're able to take whatever learnings, from the reports to further improve flows or, business requirements that you can then program in your contact center platform. Now, with all that being said, let me jump straight into the demo. Let me share my screen again. right? So right here, right now, I have Astro is one of our customers, largest customers in Malaysia. I have here, a typical customer who is, browsing the web. I've already done all this browsing upfront, so I sort of like to cut short. But yes, you could have customers browsing your website. For example, this is an example of a web journey engagement. Customers could be looking for something on your website, right? They could be looking to make a purchase. For example, they could be searching for a knowledge base. They could be asking for help, right? And they have done all these clicks and so on. And say, for example, right now, I would like to chat with a customer service consultant. Now, before I even do that, I'd like to specify that Genesys Cloud actually has an AI that actually monitors customers in real time. So if we detect that this customer, for example, needs help, or for example, he is about to abandon a shopping cart, Genesys AI would actually intercept that journey and provide assistance to the customer. Right here, I'm being proactive instead as a customer and reaching out to the to the bot. So let's say, for example, I'm just going to say hi, trigger a news shake, and then let's say, for example, I have a question. I just copy pasted something, save time. So we can actually, obviously, as with any bots out there, we can recognize intent, we can recognize questions, and we can automatically provide answers immediately to do all this self-service. So all this is about your call deflection strategy, how to basically do all the minor things and take them away from your day-to-day job for agents, right? So let's say, for example, like to speak to agent. Let's say just type agent, for example. Okay, I'd like to speak to agent. That's correct. Yes. And say it's going to ask me what would like to talk about. What is the validity of the rebate, for example. Again, all these are examples that you can program in your bot. Here I have an example of a customer asking a question because before he reaches to a customer, before he reaches to a consultant, the bot detects that there is already a KB existing for this particular query and asks, will you like to speak to an agent somewhere? And let's say, in this case, I'll say yes, I still need to speak to an agent. And then now I'm going to pop over to my agent interface itself. Now I'm working from home actually. So I am emulating a work from home experience for this particular demo. So here right now I have, let's say, for example, Genesys Cloud bookmark on my Chrome browser. Again, this is, again, no installations needed. There's, even when it comes to your soft phone, we use WebRTC technology. So no, there's no soft phone required as well. Let me just put this off queue and not take the interaction first. So we talked a bit about empathy earlier and talk about systems of listening. We talk about agent empowerment in Louis and Raymond's session, right? So in Genesys Cloud today, it's not just about routing interactions based on priority as fast as possible to agents. We have strived very, very hard to actually make the agent experience as pleasant as possible, right? You may have heard the quote, CX equal to EX or EX equal to CX, right? As the better the experience you provide to your employees, the better the experience they can provide to your customers, right? And in this particular scenario here, as an agent, when I'm logged into the system, at first glance, I can see, for example, the schedule that I've been assigned to. For example, I know right now I'm supposed to be on queue, where I am in my, how long more I have to go. Over here on the right-hand side of the screen, I know, for example, if there are any evaluations that have been assigned to me. If I'm a QA, for example, I know if I have a coaching assignment. I also would know, for example, we have a gamification, element in Genesys Cloud today, which I'll talk more in a bit. This is my score. I have assigned modules to me. For example, if you have any learning, like let's say updates that you think your contact and consultants should go through, T's and C's, or because the QA thinks this agent is poor in certain parts of his call, and he or she should go through certain courses, for example. So these can be assigned within Genesys Cloud as well. And then again, at the bottom here is your gamification board, right? Now over in the scorecard, this is where I would like to drill more down in the gamification part. We measure agents' performance on a daily basis. Now, normally that's all a given, right? Measuring handle time, or talk time, how many rejected, abandoned, and so on. What we have done is that we have taken those metrics, right? And we have assigned points to them. So right now here, you can see that, for example, on the top two here, I have agents who have been surveyed against, right? And we have agents who also have made sales. So this agent in particular, the good agent, he has received a survey, NPS survey of 7. So this is a neutral, there's not a detractor, it's a neutral surveyor. And then in terms of sales, for example, this agent has brought in about 4,000 ringgit worth of sales. And, because he did not meet that, 10,000 mark, then we are not assigning any points for him. But for example, if it's in the NPS side of things, maybe I've assigned this particular score, I get 100 points. So these are things that we can integrate into Genesys Cloud. It's not just limited to NPS and sales. We can add so much more, right? And then you have your standard stuff, like if I've answered any question interactions, I'll know I have points for average hold, average handle time, and so on, right? And I'll be able to, for example, look into how I perform in previous days. So these are days that, for example, I have some data. And all that, when we have basically a score assigned to each agent, you then have a leaderboard, right, of how agents fare compared to one another. So yes, today, yesterday, for example, let me click this month, right? And this can easily be a screen that's displayed on the dashboard, right? On the LCD 27-inch monitor, for example, hanging out on the wall, where everyone gets a good look how they fare in this particular rat race. Now, moving on to the agent experience itself, in terms of answering interactions, let me just head back and go on to right now. Chat that was routed to me. Now, in Genesys Cloud itself, we have what we call a 360 view, right? Often being 360 view. First of all, I know, for example, this is who this customer is, what is his address, what is his email, any phone numbers associated. If there's, if this customer is on any social media channels, in this case on a messenger. Now, obviously, we can integrate a CRM screen inside here to show additional details. What we can also see is the customer's journey. Obviously, all this chat transcript on the left is visible. And earlier, like I mentioned, I have already made some clicks up front on the web page. So based on the customer journey, all this is tracked. So I know, for example, this customer has clicked a sports package, has clicked movies. He has also ventured into the broadband, URL. So we know all this kind of information. And if there's a particular outcome that we were actually being capturing and targeting this customer against, there will be an AI will have been measuring the probability, the chance of how much this customer is going to do a checkout, for example, right? So you have all this view on the right in terms of what the customer has done, so that your consultant doesn't need to go and ask the customer again. They get this view, right? As well as all the chat transcript that was done earlier. Over on scripts, over here on the right, we have an example of an agent script. So this is customized. Again, it could be an embedded CRM script. What we have done here is that, for example, when I see this customer, I get, for example, I'm able to pull his profile picture. I know this customer is an existing sports pack customer. He has been with us for 5 years, for example. What are the other additional offers that I can offer to this consultant? I can add a multi-room. I can maybe offer, right now there's an offer for a 65-inch TV that I can offer to this customer, right? I am able to see tickets related to this customer, context from this customer in the last 7 days, how many open tickets for this customer, how many reported incidents in the same area, right? Maybe if there's, for example, there's a fiber outage, maybe I'll, tone or word my words about fiber packages a bit more carefully. For example, I know how much this customer has, outstanding balance this customer has, what's the duration of this. And there are things like, for example, I can pull out, say, for example, a survey history from this customer. Again, all this is to help your consultant to get a good view of what this customer has been through. So for example, I know he has answered this particular survey, how this survey was answered. I can also, for example, click here to jump to that particular interaction history, right, which I can read more about, right? Now going back, now there are other things that obviously we can configure here, all this again, in short, is customizable, right? And yeah, basically in terms of, I can continue on chatting. We have canned responses. That's just to really sum it up. So canned responses, again, is default as part of the product. You could have a knowledge base added as well. But say, for example, here as a greeting, I'd like to, do something like this. I have already a prepared, greeting that I don't need to type one by one. I could do a search, for example. And again, these are things that we can, put as many KBs inside. They could search and, automatically select to be pasted into the chat so that, it saves some handling time for them. And with that, let's say, for example, I'm going to do in this particular web interaction, and then we jump to our wrap up screen, right? So now again, I know some of you run contact centers, you have a CRM screen. Within Genesys itself, obviously, we will have our own disposition. So let's say, for example, this customer, I've managed to talk this customer into upgrading into 100 or 800 Mbps connectivity. So I'll just select this as such, and then I'll do a wrap up. Okay, now that's all I can show you today with the time that we have. I know I was speeding as a train. Again, I will encourage you to reach out to our partner Servion to arrange for a separate demo. And with that, perhaps maybe I'll pause if there are questions to be asked. Maybe stop sharing my screen as well.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Chinan, for the great demo. We now see how this orchestration journey can be leveraged using the Genesys platform. And Raymond, thanks for sharing, the challenges that you faced, and also some of the tips that you have provided. Just a very quick run through. I think we got a few minutes left. Do we have any questions, any burning questions from out in the audience that anybody wants to ask? I think we have a few which is online, which is being answered, but those that we are not able to answer right away today, we will actually respond back via email.
Joseph, I noticed some questions in the Q&A. Maybe we can answer one or two live. There is a question from one of our audiences asking, how fast can Genesys Cloud be implemented? Now, all this, if I'm being honest, depends on the business requirements, the number of phases involved, number of integration points involved, and so on, right? It can range, from several months to half a year. And again, I think the audiences, if you should know what I'm talking about. But what I can share is that we can now do implementations with Genesys Cloud much faster as compared to an on-premise system. So much so that, let me cite this. In last year and the year before, during the pandemic, we had this offer to customers and even non-customers who needed help during the pandemic, right, to set up a agile contact center to provide queries. And for those customers we helped, we were actually able to bring them within 2 days. Now, when I say 2 days, this is only possible because the platform is already ready and there were no integration. So they just needed a ACD queue, for example, with agents all sit in with queues, answering calls, and the calls are being recorded. And this was done within 48 hours. Normally, this would have not been possible at all with on-premise solution, right? So that's how fast Genesys Cloud can be implemented. Now, maybe another question that I think I can answer. There's a question about chatbot taking away human experience, right? The element of human experience. In some ways, yes. From the very early days when chatbots were implemented, I think everyone was very enthusiastic to hop onto the wagon to deploy a bot. And so more often than not, they didn't have a proper strategy when it comes to how the bot should behave. They didn't really fully test all the different questions or all the different scenarios that a bot should react to, when put into that particular situation. I guess now with the technology that we have, for example, Google Dialogflow, they do, for example, sentiment analysis. Google Dialogflow also provides mega agents, so we can easily program, 10, 20,000 different intents to be recognized. So all that obviously is, helping the bot to be more human, right, as time passes. And I believe there's of course many more things to come in the space of bots as well. And yeah, those are the two that I think I'll answer. Maybe there are other questions.
Maybe I'll add additional color to the question regarding the human experience that the chatbot might take away. A couple of years ago, when I was speaking with a team of executives from a global bank, they had the same inquiry, but it wasn't about chatbot per se. It was about robo-advisors. There's a general belief that robo-advisors is going to enroach into the space of what would be relationship managers and financial advisors in person. Has that happened? Well, not really. Yes and no, because there is and will be a segment of consumers and customers that would want to feel empowered to do some of those things on their own, right? And really it's about getting more out of that share of wallet, making them a lot stickier with regards to interacting with your brand. So in this same vein, that's how we see chatbots as well.
Sure. Thanks, Louis and Chinan. Yeah. So before I close off today's webinar, Raymond, any parting words from you? Any wise advice?
Well, I think the team has really hit it spot on. I think today we have touched on a few key words that that I think that really accentuates what I was saying earlier about being empathetic, being human. I think that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, when we talk about customer experience, it's talking about making that connection and making that connection effective and making that connection and to deliver a personalized connection. So I think that's very important, and how we use technology, and what Chinan has showed today is amazing. Some of the things that we do in terms of gamifying the workspace as well for the agents. Number one. Number two, some of the other technologies that we are using also to interact with customers to help deliver a more personalized experience. I think Luis also spoke about the need to eliminate asking repeated questions. Again, we're talking about level of personalization, omni-channel, and having that information available, irregardless of which channel one as a consumer decides to interact. And I think that becomes absolutely important, and that should be the strategy of every organization to look at customer experience as a whole. I'll pause there. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks very much, all the speakers. Thanks for your contribution. Thanks for the tips and all the sharing of your own experiences. I would love to share my own experiences too, but there's a lot to be shared. So I'll leave it for some time over a beer or something like that. But yeah, so on your screen, you will see that, we do have a way for participants, to try to understand what Genesys Cloud CX can offer. So there is actually a 30-day trial for free, and please do reach out to us. If you can see all the names below, including mine as well for Singapore. Do reach out to us if there is an interest for you to pick up this free 30-day trial. So that's one thing. Just as a parting shot, we will be sending out survey questionnaires to the participants today. Do provide us your feedback, as we would like to learn more from you with regards to understanding what is good and what is not so good, and we can improve on our future webinars, right? And of course, also to put yourself into a draw for one of the 50 USD Amazon gift voucher. So with that, I thank you very much for taking time to be with us today, and thanks to all the speakers. Thanks to you, especially the participants, for taking time and participating in this webinar. So have a good day, everyone.